So, the show must go on. Has anybody wondered what we're doing here? I've heard it said that if you want to know if you're done on planet Earth, ask yourself, are you alive? If you're alive, you're not done. If you're alive, you're here to be living. Amen? So today is about life. It's about living. It's funny because we all come onto this planet and we seem to be confused about what that is sometimes, what life is or what living is. Yet it has to be so innately in the fabric of our nature, right? Because we just appear here. It happens. It happens in us, through us, and as us all the time. But there are so many books on life and living life, right? This thing called life. Life is for living. Living the infinite way. Living without fear. So many people writing about how to live. We're alive, but we're seemingly challenged by how to live. So why are all of these writers, authors, people telling us about living? I mean, what's the other option, right? We're here. What's the other option? You may say another option is fear, fearing life, that maybe somehow that's not living. I have found that another option, far worse sometimes than living through fear, is waiting. Just waiting. Waiting for life to begin. Waiting for something to happen. At least fear is experiencing energy and moving it, being present to it. Fear is the evidence of something trying to grow. Because if we weren't afraid, we'd just be numb sometimes. But there is a tendency in the human condition to wait. To wait for life to start. What constitutes living your life? Have you thought of that? Is there any part of the time you experience or have experienced in your life where you don't consider it your life? Maybe you consider it a detour. Maybe you feel like you're in limbo. You might be in between jobs or waiting for the right job or sitting with the wrong job. Maybe waiting to be out of debt to feel like you're alive, waiting for a diagnosis to pass and a healing to be experienced, waiting for the kids to be out of the house or to come back home, waiting for something to be finished, fixed, over, waiting to find something, waiting for something to happen so that you can start living, waiting for forgiveness. Waiting for a weight to be lifted. Waiting for the idea that you may somehow be able to undo something in the past. And when you do, you'll be available to live in the future or the now. Waiting for the family to be all in one place, waiting for the kids to have kids, waiting to retire. How many people have known someone that waited for their life, waited till retirement to start living, right? Just waiting for that day to happen so that they could start living. I know more than one person who, ready for that day, made their transition, right? Either before it or right after it. Waiting for life to happen is one of the hardest ways to live life. I remember the realization when I was living in Colorado. I was leaving Denver to come to ministerial school here at Unity Village. And I had been writing music on the guitar, and I recognized how many amazing girlfriends I had in Colorado as I was leaving. And I really, because nothing shows you what you love more than losing it, right? Or having it change. And so as I was getting ready to leave, I wrote a song, and it's called Not Your Normal Love Song, and it's a love song that I wrote to all the women in my life, to all of the girlfriends and the ones who supported me conversation after conversation, moment after moment, happy hour after happy hour, who supported my journey and who really became part of the fabric of my life. But I never paused to really tell them how important they were. I never honored them with a song, though I honored a lot of gents with songs. Well, not necessarily ones they'd want to be honored with. I honored my experience of the gents with a song. I actually had some guy, I gave him my CD once, and he seemed like a really nice guy, and he never called after, and I thought, oh, he probably listened to all the songs and thought, ooh, I don't want to be one of the guys on one of those songs. I actually think when I came back to Kansas City, I'm pretty sure I had a hypnotherapy session with him. Like 10 years later, I wonder if he was like, that was her. But I realized after having some therapy and doing some meditation work, and I don't really know when the realization came, but it was a pretty strong experience of a realization that my idea of my life somehow revolved around relationship. If I was in one, I valued my life more. It was like my life. This is my life. It's starting now. I'm having it now. And if I was not in one, it was like, this is the time in between. The time in between. Now, I had enough time in between to start recognizing that I better get on board with my life and realize the whole shebang is it, honey. And that it's time to start falling in love with all of it, love it or hate it, to welcome it in, to invite it in, to embrace it, to live it, and to not call it a side story. Who's living in a side story? What parts of your life did you export or adopt out and say, that really wasn't it? That's waiting. Waiting for something to happen, for life to begin. We all do it in some way or another. Waiting for money, waiting for a relationship, waiting for a healing, waiting for a sense of wholeness, waiting for something to happen, waiting to be saved. The good news and the bad news is that there's no Savior coming and there's no need to wait. We are saved when we breathe into it all and we allow ourselves to live in the fullness of the moment, to let go of the part of the ego, the part of the sense of separation, the sense mind that tries to say, once I have it all and I'm on track, then I'll start living. Then I'll start feeling alive. Then I'll start feeling the gratitude. Then I'll start feeling myself, my soul, like I'm on my path, like I'm on track, like I'm living my purpose. Because isn't that the biggest trick? The moment we have it all, something shifts, doesn't it? Life isn't about having everything that the mind thinks it needs to have in one moment. Life is about being able to ride with all of it. There was an anonymous quote that I came across that I loved. And it said, maybe life isn't about avoiding the bruises. Maybe it's about collecting the scars to prove we showed up for it. That gives like a little insight there, a little key. It's like, can I love even the moments that I loathe? Love them not like yippee-yay, woohoo. Can I love them meaning, can I own them? Can I harmonize with them? Can I start falling in love with the person I am and showing up for her and supporting her and discontinuing the abuse of discounting and degrading experiences and life because they don't fit an illusionary pattern that is not the pattern I'm walking? Can I stop waiting for the depression to be over, for the government to change, for my family or my friends to change, even for myself to change? Am I willing to let go of the idea of being in limbo, being on a detour, or waiting? When I went to college and I had a 10-year boyfriend at the time, so I was used to being in a relationship. And you know, when you have that, you're kind of like hand in hand. And for me, it creates this false sense of confidence when I have a buddy that close to me. It's like probably an Enneagram style or personality style. I'm the type that if I'm going to have a party, I make sure that the 3 to 4, at least 2 to 4, and certainly at least one person that I'm really closest to can come before I invite everyone. Because I would probably have a heart attack otherwise, right? If the person that and it is a style, it is, in personality style stuff, but it's a safety thing. It's like when you're with the people that you're closest to, then you can relax and you can expand out more. But when I went to college, I had this boyfriend, and I got a triple room. So 3 women in my dorm room that I got. And most people got 2, but I got 3. And I must have come into college at CU Boulder. I must have come into college with some idea that I really needed to find friends and find them quickly. Like it was this thing in my mind, you're starting out without friends. And I had a couple of experiences in junior high and high school of going to different schools and having a rough go of it. And so that probably stuck with me as a pattern, like you have a problem. It's going to be hard. And so I went into it just thinking, where are they? Where are my friends? Just like when I was in Colorado, always going, where is my husband? Where is my boyfriend? Where is my husband? Is he here? Is he around this corner? Literally would walk around corners being like, maybe he's over there. Like I can remember like being on road trips, driving around and being like, who's that guy in that car? Maybe that's him. Is he going to talk to me? No, he's not going to talk to me. Like, whereas maybe she knows him and she's going to introduce him to me. Waiting. Where is he? Traveling the road, just going, where is he? I'm waiting. And so I was in college and I started doing the same thing with my friends, right? Do you hear a pattern here? And if you go back to my childhood, you could see the beginnings of that pattern, the seeds for that pattern starting to happen, right? You could trace them back. But here I am in college and I'm going, where are the girlfriends? I have the boyfriend. He's back home. I need the girlfriends. I have to have them here. And I was depressed, and I wasn't a drinker, and I went to the biggest party school, probably, at the top, CU Boulder at the time, and it was huge, and I was used to small things. And it was scary. It was terrifying. And everywhere I went, I felt like I found people that weren't like me, right? So I went to, finally started, exploring. Finally, it got to the point where I was like, maybe church. So finally, I went to some of the young life groups or these, small Christian community groups, and everything that I went to, it was like, they're all so sweet. I was like, this is never going to fit. And I tried to go to little events. And in the meantime, I hung out with the girls that were in my dorm room, and some of their friends, because one had a cousin and others had other friends. And so I hung out with them. And my sister even did that thing that you can do in sororities that they call it a legacy. I didn't rush for the sororities because I didn't think I was a sorority girl. But she knew what a mess I was. Literally, I was walking down the street one time on off campus, and I ran into her, and I see her coming up, and I was trying the whole time to smile. Really trying. And as I got closer, I was like, I don't have any friends. So she pulled these strings and did this legacy thing. And even though I missed all of Rush on the last day when they picked their girls, I was there in the crowd. Everyone wondered, how'd this girl get here? Who knows, right? What a situation to create for yourself. So this girl that didn't go through any of the stuff you have to go through. And there I was with the group. And of course, there were the older girls, and there they said, Erin McCabe, you're one of them. And everyone's like, where did she come from? Where she was all this? Because I was a legacy. My sister had gone to that sorority, so they let me in. And then as I got more involved and started listening and talking to people, it was boys, 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 and I wasn't interested in boys, right? It wasn't relevant to me there. They were invisible to me. And then it was drinking, and I was like, I don't drink. And I felt alienated again. And I ended up thanking them, and after a little bit of time realizing it just doesn't fit, no thank you. And I remember coming home one day, and I don't know if I was talking to one of my girlfriends that I was in the room with, but they're like, what the hell are we, chopped liver? And in that moment, I realized two of my very best friends were divine appointments, whose names were written on a sheet of paper by someone I don't even know, whose beds were placed to the left and to the right of mine, who I woke up with every morning and said goodnight to every night. Two of my best friends ever that were most amazing fits, right? And all you really need on the planet is one really good friend, isn't it? Like when you have one really good friend. But I wasted time waiting, watching for it to happen. What are you still watching for? What are you so intent on finding or having that you're not looking at what's in front of you? Or you're not living with the people that are around you? Or you're not loving yourself in the moment, or living and loving what is? Are we willing to give that up? Are we willing to recognize that we're worth letting go of waiting? That this is it. This is the real life. Gritty and all. Love it, want to leave it. Ernest Holmes wrote a book, Living Without Fear, and in the introduction to this book, it says, we spend most of our lives trying to avoid what we do not like and seeking to experience more of the things that bring us pleasure, happiness, and well-being. However, in doing this, we find ourselves in an almost continual state of fear in one or more of its forms. We fear what we do not like, and also fear we will not have what we do like. Worry, crisis, and anxiety seem to plague most people, often to the extent that life is something to be suffered through rather than to be lived with joy. This does not mean that we shall ever be free from all problems, but rather that life and living present a continual challenge, which we would learn to master instead of allowing it to master us. Which we would learn to master instead of allowing it to master us. Paul Freeney, one of my favorite authors, he wrote the book I Am the Door. He said, you will experience many small deaths in the course of your life. And Edgar Allan Poe said, never to suffer would be never to have been blessed. I think the distinction between feeling like we're living our lives, very well may be the difference between when things are going our way or when the things we want to have happen are happening versus when we feel like it's out of control or something's unwanted. So how can we move into every moment wanting it? How can we allow ourselves to wake up to the wanting of our being, the wanting to have ourselves and the experience of life, and loving, or at least living, even in what is unwanted, owning it, making it your own because it is your own experience, and you're not here to disown your own experience. If you tell your life story, has anyone ever told their life story? Tell your life story, and you'll recognize how important all of the phases and stages are. Life stories, when people reflect on them and share them, are not always all the sunshine moments. In fact, sometimes the detours and the roadblocks and the waiting and the wanting, those are like the spices of our lives. Those flavor the dish. They direct the recipe. They become our defining moments. It doesn't make a difference if we make it or we don't make it, if we have it all or we think we don't have it all. It's what we build and who we become through the trials and the tribulation, through the joy and the strife, through the connections and the chaos, through all of it. In each moment, we could ask ourselves if we have love. Hopefully the answer is yes. It's the most important thing. And if we find ourselves in a moment in life where we feel like the answer is no, it's a call. It's a call to be the love, to know that you can bring it, that when you bring the love, you bring the cosmic consciousness, you bring God alive for yourself, for others, and we're all worth it. Don't live on a thimble of life. Joel Goldsmith, in Living the Infinite Way, says this: it would be impossible for God to hand us just a thimble of love. It would be impossible for God to give us 90% health. It would be impossible for God to issue us 60, 70, or 80 years of life, although it's true that we are only demonstrating a thimbleful of love and supply and just 60, 70, or 80 years of life and strength. It may be perfectly true that there is not much love coming in or going out from us, but that has nothing to do with God. It has to do with the false belief that if only we can find the magic formula, in some way we can start God's good flowing, or that for some reason we have stopped God's good. It is principle and it is truth that we cannot stop the good from flowing. Let us have the eyes that are awakened to seeing that truth. We watched a film this week, a film called Emotion, and there was a striking beginning to that film. There was a husband making his transition, laying down on the bed, and he said to his wife, come closer, come closer. I need to tell you something, and I don't have much strength, but you need to hear this, and I'm not shelling it. And so the wife got closer and closer, and he mustered up all the strength that he could, and he whispered into her ear, from the moment you lift your head off the pillow, remember, you have everything you need. Namaste.